Hello! So today in Microsoft Flight Simulator we're taking a look at a new aircraft from OrbX. It's manufactured by Blackwing Sweden AB. It's called the Blackwing BW635RG. And I think it's classed officially as an ultralight aircraft, but it actually holds several world records for speed and climb rate and things like that. So if you look very closely at it, you can see the modelling is absolutely stunning. But if we go very closely to some of the dark areas, you'll see almost the entire aeroplane is made out of composites. So can you see that patterning there on the front panel? So if we move around the aircraft, you can see the material modelling on it is really, really nicely done. Obviously we saw some glitches there. That's just the drone camera that's a glitch in Microsoft Flight Sim itself. So you can see that material modelling is next level around this entire aircraft. It's really, really nice. So yeah, the quality of the rendering is not without question. So if we go and have a look, or is without question I should say, if we go and have a look inside the wheel wells, you can see more use of carbon composites. It really is quite something else, isn't it? And then obviously people like to look at the undercarriage for some reason as a bit of a telltale as how much detail the development team have gone into, and yes, it's very, very good. So whoever cleaned this aeroplane deserves a medal because it's absolutely spotless. So there we go. So that's our little look around the outside. Let's go and put the drone camera to one side. And shall we take it for a fly? So if we go and jump inside the aeroplane, you can see the modelling inside is very good as well. You get lots more carbon everywhere. So it's an incredibly light aircraft. All of the things are clickable within the aircraft and all of the animations are really nice. And you can see that really lovely reflective tinted windscreen, or canopy I should say. So if we close that back over us, so to start the engine we're going to need to choose a fuel tank. So we'll go for left, so it's low wing, so the fuel is in the wings as per normal with low wing aircraft. There is a fuel pump up here, but we'll need the master switch on halfway first, and that will power up the Garmin screens. So it's got the G3X avionics suite built in. It's also got a GFC 500 autopilot, and you can see it's got some custom screens going on which are really quite interesting. Not seen them looking like this in the simulator before, and it apparently is very accurate to the real thing. So now we have the power switched on, we can turn on the fuel pump. We've got the ESP, which is something like enhanced stability something or other. It's some sort of avionics protection system. Enhanced stability protection maybe? Not sure. We've got nav lights. We'll turn those on before starting the engine, and we've also got ACC, which will convert, I'm guessing, the power to electronics within the cockpit. So we're not just using the batteries once the engines are running. So let's go and turn the engine over. You see it starts immediately, which you'd expect with a brand new aircraft that's spotless. But the level of modelling throughout is stunning. It's photographic. It really is something else. Can we open this panel maybe? No, it doesn't look like that's stowage. That's a shame. There is no tablet in this, by the way. If anybody, I know people are kind of getting used to seeing tablets in the aircraft. This doesn't have one. Okay, what can we do then? Let's go and go for a quick flight, I guess. Go and fly a circuit and see how it handles, and have a little play with the autopilot on the way round. Okay, so I don't think we need the fuel pump on all the time. So this aircraft has a system on it called SLPC, which stands for Single Level Power Control, which means you will not find a mixture control in the cockpit. So it's got basically an electronic engine management system. So we just select an amount of thrust or an amount of power from the engine and we get it. So let's just go and sit outside as it runs up and see what it sounds like. It's got a Rotax engine. It's a Rotax 915IS, 141 horsepower apparently. So I'm being very careful with running it up because it will exceed the braking force on the tyres and it will start to move the aeroplane. Okay, so let's come off the parking brake and see what the turning circle is like. It's not the best turning circle ever, but it's kind of good enough. Okay, so let's just follow the line out to the runway here. We're at Boonville in the US. Don't know if I said that before. So this is D83 is the ICAO code for this airfield, if you like the look of it. I swear I do quite a lot of my flight tests as long as the weather is being helpful, and today it's almost still, so we've got a little bit of a headwind down the runway, which is perfect. Okay, so we're not going to use any flaps for this initial takeoff. We're going to go for 75% throttle, knowing that this is a very fast aeroplane. So we're coming up through 50, 60 knots. So we're going to rotate gently, and it's off the floor very easily. We're going to turn that power switch on to full, which will give us power to the systems, such as the wheels. So that's all really nicely animated as well. And we'll push on with the throttle. Looks amazing, doesn't it? It's a very sleek aeroplane, which is obviously why it's got such good numbers and why it holds records in its class. So obviously visibility, because of this huge bubble canopy, is fantastic. So we're just going to turn back down the valley. So there's Boonville that we've just taken off from, do quite a steep turn to come back. We'll fly out over the valley here. So let's get a bit of height and see how it behaves in the stall, just to try it out. So we're going to get up to about 3,000 feet before we even think about doing this. So it's holding 80 knots with about a 2,000 feet a minute climb. So I'm just looking at the engine instruments over there, so we're just about on maximum manifold pressure at the moment. We have got some throttle left, so you can push it beyond safe limits. RPM is managed for us, so we have nothing to do. I'm guessing that's part of that SLPC system. Okay, so we've just come up to 3,000 feet, so we'll level out and let's cut the throttle. And we'll sit up in the cockpit so we can see what's going on. So we're losing airspeed. I'm keeping the nose a little bit up, so we're climbing ever so gently just to help us bleed the speed off. So we're down to 60 knots. So there comes the stall warning. I'm just holding back gently, keeping a straight line. The airplane's trying to go right, which is interesting because the propeller's going right. Oh, and it's dropped the left wing quite viciously when it finally went. And it's picking up speed alarmingly quickly, and that's because of how sleek the aeroplane is. So we'll do a turn as we climb back out. So again, no more, we haven't put any power back on yet. We're just turning and forcing it into a stall with a turn, and to see what happens. Let's tuck it under. It's not going to go into a spin very easily. What about if we do it in the direction of the propeller? So will it spin? Yes, it will. But we need to get it out in a hurry because we're not very high. So normal spin recovery worked amazingly well there, and I think, to be honest, we could have just centered the controls and it would have righted itself, but obviously I needed to expedite that because we were quite low, and it came out of the spin remarkably quickly. So I guess, full disclosure, I had tried a spin earlier with it while I was playing with it, just to make sure that when I did it in this video I wouldn't go and plant it into a farmer's field somewhere. Okay, so how does it descend on a steep descent? So if we go and force it into side slip, so I'm using about 50% aileron with 100% left rudder to keep it in a straight line, and it's actually accelerating, look. So that's one of the penalties of having such a sleek body shape, is side slip is not going to be a very good way of achieving that. So we'll circle, lose the speed as we stay level. So we are now below flap speed, so we can get the gear down. Put the landing lights on as well, just so we can have a look at them. So what do we get for landing lights on this thing? Not tremendously obvious. Oh, the sim has frozen. Let's hope it releases very soon. One day I'll have to rebuild my PC to try and get to the bottom of what causes the freezes. Oh, there's an enormous landing light. So it's kind of hidden away in a cowl there. Okay, so we got full flaps and we are drifting down at just under 50 knots. So if we were to do a side slip, how quickly can we come down? So we're watching indicated airspeed. Yeah, it doesn't lose a lot of speed very quickly, but still, for the kind of shape of the aeroplane, it's quite stunning that it can even get anywhere near doing this. So we're still side slipping. Still side slipping. Let's straighten it up for the runway. We'll do a touch and go. So we're just above stall speed. Okay, so lift the flaps back up. Oh, and we've lost the engine. Now there was a surprise. I wonder what caused that. So we have to do that. That was interesting. So, answers on a postcard of what caused the loss of the engine. Probably, it may have been, I mean, I had some throttle there. Maybe it was just the shock of hitting the ground in the way we did. Reduced the fuel. Maybe they've simulated that, I don't know. Okay, so gear up. And we can push on a little bit with the power. So at cruising height, which apparently is 9,500 feet, this thing will do 220 knots in cruise, which is stunning really. Obviously at low level you're going to get nowhere near those kind of speeds. Having said that, it is remarkably quick. Once you get it in level flight and you give it time to build some speed up. We'll do it now on the downwind. So we've got the airfield just over here. As we come downwind, we'll just trim the nose for the increasing airspeed. You can see the speed is building. We're in absolutely level flight, or thereabouts. And it's, yeah, it's building and building and building. 140 knots, 145 knots, 150 knots just coming up. It's quick. So even at low altitude, it's quick. You can see it's moving around in the turbulence. That's obviously natural because it's an ultralight. So let's try some aerobatics. So we're watching the attitude there. So it's absolutely rock steady in aerobatics. But it did increase in speed enormously coming down through that loop. So I wasn't pulling back very hard, but we went right out to 160 knots to the edge of the safe airspeed bracket for it. So we're just looping back in. We've got some room now to get the speed under control. So let's get the wheels down, which will introduce some drag, and we'll go for a proper landing. We haven't played with the autopilot, but it's an autopilot. It works as you would expect. It's got lights on all the keys, so you can easily see what mode of operation it's in. So we're just going to go for a small amount of flap for landing. Let's have a look at this from outside. It's quite a pretty little aeroplane, isn't it? It's very small. Oh, it tried to drop a wing then. I think it's just a bit of turbulence because we're nowhere near stall speed. I do love all these reflections going on around the canopy. So we'll just hold it off the ground and see what happens when we get to stall speed over the runway. So we get an electronic beeping and we're down. We'll hold the nose up for as long as we can. There we go. So the nose came down at about 30 knots. That was interesting. So I'm going to crack the throttle open so we don't get into that whole situation where the engine dies on us again. I don't think that's what was caused it last time, because the engine was open. We're just trying to keep the taxi as slow as possible to keep the turn radius tight here. There we go. Let's taxi down to the parking area again. So there we go. This is again, once again, the Blackwing 635 RG. And I think it's really, really nice. It's being sold by OrbX, so you can buy it through the OrbX Direct application. But yeah, if you like this sort of aeroplane and you like just going, you know, doing point-to-point navigation around the countryside, you can't go wrong with something like this, especially with the glass cockpit. You know, it gives you obviously lots of visual cues as to where you are, what you're doing. So it's very, very nicely done. So I'm just slowing down a little bit to taxi in. Oh, we're going to have a face-off with a forklift in a moment. So we'll just go and put this on one of the T's to line it up. If you ever wondered about these T's, in the real world they usually have hooks on them or loops in the ground, which is where you can put your tie downs onto. So it's just a T shape to line your wings up against. So you'll be able to tie the wings to the markers or the hoops on the ground. Okay, so parking brake on. And we just turn the engine off here. We have no mixture control to, you know, to starve the engine as such. So we can go and turn off the lights, turn off the power over there, and then turn the master switch back off, open the canopy, and out we get. So there you go. So that is, as I said, the Blackwing BW635RG in Microsoft Flight Simulator. I think it's really good. And it's not too expensive. So if you go and look on the OrbX application, it came in at about £20. So as I said, if you like this sort of aeroplane, it's as good if not better than lots of the others that are out there. I would say it's roughly similar to the Sting S4. If you've already got the Sting, I would argue the Sting might be a little bit more feature rich because it has the tablet and the consumable simulation, which this doesn't have. Okay, anyway, I'm going to leave it there, and I'll see you again soon.